The Python Spell. Whether you're working in quiet solitude, driving down a long empty road, gliding across a calm river, or resting in the stillness of the night, all I ask is that you open your ears and open your mind to the whispers of the past as they drift gently beside you. Welcome to Awakened, a place where ancient tales, folklore, karma, curses, and unexplained forces gather in the dark. Tonight, I have a story that will take you back to a time when humans feared the forest, and the creatures within were not merely animals as we know them today. This is the story of the Python Spell, a legend that claims the python does not kill by strength alone, but by an enchantment, a spell that steals the will to escape. So if you're ready, sit still and try not to look around too much, because sometimes the thing you shouldn't see is the very thing watching you. And now, this is the Python Spell. Since ancient times, the elders have passed down a tale that says pythons possess a spell which they use to drain their prey of strength before coiling around it and devouring it. Whether one believes this or not is a matter of personal judgment. But as for me, I believe it without a doubt, because I once faced such an event myself, and today I will tell it without hiding a single detail. First incident, the python of the deep forest, 1960. When I was about 14 years old, I followed my father, my uncle, and my uncle-in-law into the great forest to hunt. Our target that day was a muntjac deer. We brought along 3 or 4 hunting dogs. Upon arriving at the site, we carefully took our positions. I hid beside a large boulder, while my uncle positioned himself about 100 meters away. Meanwhile, my father and uncle-in-law led the dogs down toward the foot of the mountain to drive the deer in our direction. It was the dry season. A forest fire had recently swept through the thatch grass, and new shoots and leaves had begun to sprout across the hillside. This was the time when grazing animals, cattle, buffalo, muntjac, and deer would come out to feed. It was a golden opportunity for hunters. Soon the barking of the dogs echoed through the forest. The muntjac was truly driven toward the spot where I was hiding. Strangely, it stopped beneath a tree, about 30 meters away from me. I did not dare to shoot, for my short musket had a range of only 10 meters, so I waited, hoping it would come closer. But it stood completely still. Then I saw something flicker before its face, like a thin, shimmering thread, streaked with colors, resembling a multicolored spider's web, darting toward the deer's eyes. In the next instant, the deer collapsed while still standing, drained of all strength. Before I could call out to the others, a massive python burst from the bushes and rapidly coiled itself around the deer. Yet the deer did not struggle at all, as though it had been enchanted by a spell. When I shouted for the others to come and see, everyone trembled at the sight of the python calmly constricting and swallowing its prey. We decided to abandon the hunt and leave the deer to the snake. None of us dared interfere, for we believed such an act would bring misfortune upon us. The true owner of the prey would surely be displeased, and the curse might be far worse than we could imagine. Second incident, the spell of the Serpent woman. Many years passed. I married, had 3 children, and migrated to a distant land. One day, another event occurred that strengthened my belief that pythons truly possess a spell. 3 hunters set out together, 2 older men in their 40s, and a young man of 24 who already had 3 children. When they reached their destination in the afternoon, they built a small shelter in the forest. The young hunter said, "You 2 will still be smoking opium for quite a while. I'll go first. Maybe I can find something for dinner." And so he walked along a small stream. Not long after, the 2 older hunters were startled by desperate cries for help. "Help me! Help me!" They grabbed their guns and ran toward the sound, only to witness a horrifying scene. A gigantic python had swallowed one of the young man's legs up to his thigh, while the other leg remained outside its jaws. Preventing the snake from swallowing him completely, his body was wedged between 2 trees, and his arms clung tightly to the trunks, as if in a final instinct to survive. The 2 older hunters fired dozens of shots at the python until it finally loosened its grip. When the young man was freed, They shot the snake again and again until it lay dead. The young man's leg was covered in puncture wounds from the fangs, torn flesh and wrinkled skin, as though it had already begun to be digested. The skin peeled as if burned by a corrosive substance. It was a truly horrifying sight. He was carried back and treated with traditional herbal medicine. Several days later, when he regained consciousness, he told them what had happened. He said he had walked to a large rock, where he saw a beautiful naked woman gently stroking multicolored silk cloth. She waved for him to come closer. As if under a spell, he undressed himself, hung his gun on a tree branch, and walked toward her without the slightest caution. He stood there, caressing the silk with the woman, completely entranced, until his mind suddenly cleared. In that moment, he realized he was being swallowed by a python. The woman had vanished without a trace. The python had coiled around his body, rendering him almost unable to move. Had it not been for the 2 trees that trapped him in place, no one would ever have found him alive. The village elders believed that the young man had remained in the python's mouth for too long, and that the spell had simply worn off, allowing him to regain consciousness. If the snake had started swallowing him from the head first, there would have been no chance of survival. A serpent doctor later said that the saliva of a python or a tiger, even if it is not venomous, can slowly digest living tissue. If the wounds heal completely within 3 years, the person may survive. But if they do not, then death will come within 3 years. That young hunter spent 3 full years in treatment, yet his condition only grew worse. His leg began to rot and wither away. In the end, he passed away. The two-sided belief of humanity. Those who have experienced such events believe that pythons possess a spell. Those who have not witnessed it do not believe. Modern science explains that a snake may spray saliva or certain chemicals into the eyes of its prey, causing disorientation and loss of bodily control, making it easier to capture. But whatever the true explanation may be, before the age of globalization, the world was vast and filled with spirits. Wild animals ruled the land, and humans were merely visitors. But as the human population grew, we encroached upon the territory of the wild. The world shrank, and the legends slowly faded away. And this is the story of the python spell. Some may think it is nothing but a legend, a tale told to frighten, or to warn children not to wander into the forest. But for those who have lived on the land, who have breathed alongside the wilderness, they know there are many things in this world that humans were never meant to challenge. The most terrifying thing is not the python's fangs. It is human arrogance. When we invade, nature simply reclaims what is hers, and sometimes the one who strikes back does not need to be seen. If tonight you hear a branch snap, a faint breath beside your ear, or a silence that feels wrong, do not turn around, because perhaps it never left. If you enjoyed stories like this, don't forget to follow Awakened so you won't miss the stories the world doesn't want you to hear. And before we part tonight, there is one line I want to leave you with. Fear not what you cannot see, but fear what you are doing without thinking of its consequences. Until the next story, if you still dare to listen. Good night, and don't forget to lock your door.